because CI are certainly very keen to do this, and I'm sure Alcor are the same. They're keen to get assurance that they are going to receive the money. The way they do this is severalfold. First of all, have the policy, which names them as a beneficiary, and they have a copy of that. Secondly, they like to receive at least annual copies of letters from the insurance company stating that the policy is still in force. Additionally, in the case of people in the UK, because Cryonics Institute is an overseas company, and I dare say this will be exactly the same with Alcor, they do not like to pay out to an overseas beneficiary and require two onshore trustees. Now, the insurance company just requires that they be two trustees who are resident in Britain. CI require that they be cryonicist with CI. CI also require that they be legally obliged to do as they're supposed to do in their position of trustee and pass on those funds. So there is an extra form from the insurers to make the assignation of trustees irrevocable, and there's yet another form to make the policy itself belong to CI, so that neither the person whose policy, whose life is assured, nor the trustees can change it without CI being aware of it at their end. So because of all those things being in place, CI are very assured that they're going to get the money. They understand it sometimes takes the insurance company a short while to pay out.
The irrevocability bit frightens me a little bit, because what I wanted to say my own view is, yeah, I think I ought to sign up for Cryonics, but I'm not sure who I want to go sign up with. And today it might look on the balance as this company is slightly better than another company, but I'm hoping in 5 years' time there'll be new business models, there'll be new technology. I might want to sign up for this interplanetary version, and I want to be able to change my allegiance at that time.
You'll always have that right as the policy holder. So even though you signed the irrevocable rights over, if you're still paying your premium, you have the right to withdraw that particular beneficiary and give it to another beneficiary. You'll probably have to pay some form of administration fee to the company, and there's always a risk of them ballsing it up.
Certainly in the case of the insurer that I and most of the cryonicists I know in the UK use. I'm sorry?
Is that Scandia?
No, Legal in General.
Oh,
they simply don't allow that within the context of those forms. What would be necessary is to simply allow that policy to lapse and create a new one.
That might be the case, and that might be a
request. What if you're uninsurable?
I'm sorry?
What if you're uninsurable?
If you're uninsurable, that's your problem.
And if you're, if you paid into the policy for 30 years,
then that's your loss.
Change and you're 60,
then as it stands, that's your loss.
I don't know of any of these extant cryonics organizations that do not allow you to change the policy ownership.
Well, that's we're talking about doing it without their consent.
Yes, yes, it requires their consent.
So it requires their consent. So if they give you consent, you can do it.
What you do is you have a contract with them that says under what conditions you can change the beneficiary in ownership. And my contract, for instance, with Alcor is I pay them $35.
Yes, that's the.
So they can't change that.
That's the agreement with the company I was
right.
referring to, with the insurance company. As far as the insurance company is concerned, that cannot be changed without their consent. If they consent, that's great. But I thought you were asking of, if they don't, then what if you're insurable about that? That's your problem if they didn't consent. Is that clear what I'm saying? Squid, asking you to cool down water. It's called a squid. It's essentially is a way of simply circulating the ice water in the ice bath to make it cool down much more quickly.
And Roland Brothers have. Yeah. So you're talking.
The Squid and Thumper, I think they borrow from Cryonics UK in this case. They certainly have the ice bath. Then, with regards to the perfusion itself, perfusion, the equipment simply looks like a suitcase with a lot of tubes that come out of it, and essentially we'll plug in either to the femoral arteries, if doing a whole body. Or obviously if it's just the head only plumbing directly in here. Then there's a pump system that allows the blood to flow out into a waste bladder, and the perfusate liquid to flow in. So that will get gradually shifted over. So there's now no or almost no blood in the body, and you'll simply have all that replaced with the perfusate liquid. So you turn a nice shady yellow by then.
What does this equipment look like?
It looks like a large.
Photograph?
It looks like a large mass of tubes coming out of a suitcase.
Do you have a photograph of it?
I don't have one on it. I could probably get one online. I seem to recall there was one.
And who
I should.
put this together?
Alcor provide the kit to Cryonics UK, so we're using Alcor kit at present. I
So
understand
you're
that.
talking about the
understand
ATP.
I'm sorry.
The Alcor ATP.
Yes. Yes, exactly that.
When was that last service?
Well, it was last used about 6 months ago.
For suspension or for practice?
Well, it's one use, the tubing. So essentially, when it gets used, it gets replaced. We have one actually there for training, and then we have one fresh one sterile.
This was used clinically on a patient 6 months ago? Here in the UK?
Yeah, there was a perfusion done 6 months ago.
A blood washout?
Yeah, for Alcor.
I was just going to comment that the Alcor ATP was designed for acute blood washout. In other words, you provide cardiopulmonary support with chest compression and mechanical ventilation, and then do a femoral cut down, cannulate, and wash the blood out. It is not a cryo protection system. It requires considerable expertise to use. It requires a lot of training and experience because it essentially is a standard cardiopulmonary bypass perfusion platform with a hollow fiber oxygenator, heat exchanger, and it's very easy to pump air or screw the patient up.
Incidentally, if I could just interrupt very briefly, that is one of the reasons that we got the paramedics on board, simply because of the medical aspects of the procedure.
You think a paramedic can do perfusion?
And the funeral directors to.
You think a funeral director can do perfusion?
They've been doing it.
Or were they just using a funeral director's pump for putting around formalin there?
You turn a paramedic or a funeral director loose. First of all, I've got a picture of the ATP if you want to project it on the screen. Would you like to see
Sure.
it?
Yes, please.
Sure.
Are we confident that this equipment is actually going to work? You know, there's been various discussions of risks. Most of us in the room feel that some of the religious or philosophical risks aren't that troubling. We're not going to wake up in the middle of the night trembling about that, but we are worried about the actual practicalities of it.
This will just give you an idea of what, this was one of the last cases I did in 2002. This is an air-deployed remote case, so we're using a vehicle that we rented, that we leased on site. This is a real problem, because we waited for 4 days for her to arrest. And so we're camped out in the waiting room of the medical center for 4 days. And two of the people that you see there, the fellow on the right in the blue scrubs, he's a paramedic. He left us at day 2. He couldn't stay away from his job any longer, so he just left. The rest of us stayed. And like I said, it's a long, hard haul. This is a typical med kit. That's the initial cardiopulmonary resuscitator that's used. We used the time that we had during that 4 days to review every aspect of the procedure to train. The hospital was kind enough to let us use their wall oxygen so that we could power our device without pulling down our cylinders. And this is the patient's room shortly before she arrested. And this is just the transport platform. I would estimate that you're going to have about 200 hours of training before you can use that equipment effectively. And that's if you already have a base, such as being able to establish IV access, do a peripheral cut down to get fluid in. It takes a long time to master the mechanics of the equipment. Patient is just arrested. Someone is working on her with an endocardial pump. I have begun medication administration, and then very quickly we moved her into the portable ice bath and continue mechanical CPR. And then to get to the ATP, this is what's going on in the mortuary, and